experiences. So now it feels like it's more natural. I don't necessarily go into a deep trance to start channeling.
Yeah. And so I like what you said too about that being a journey, because when it comes in like that is in fragments, sometimes that's pieced together over time instead of just in one chunk, and sometimes we'll try to force it. And so just getting into the practice, right, of that flow state and trusting that more will come through. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as humans, we just tend to um, chase for those moments that are, really powerful. Maybe someone has had an ayahuasca ceremony or really powerful breathwork experience, or a really powerful sound healing experience, and then we tend to chase for that, or we want to go back to that experience. But I feel like these are the moments that you get activated. It's almost as if, something shifts within you, like really shifts, so that you can have those experiences and feel like they're more of your natural state. Because at the end of the day, that's who we are. We are multidimensional beings, and we have access to the spiritual realm, to the other dimensions. So, and I believe that in the future, it will be more and more like that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So Will, then how did that unfold with the Pleiadians and also the 90 consciousness? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I was, let's say, consciously channeling around 2019, 2020, because I'm also a breathwork facilitator, and I also have my solo practice. And I noticed that when I had those practices, those sessions, of course, during the breath work, you release a lot of stagnant energy, you clear a lot of energy. It can be very cathartic too. It can be very healing, so that in when you relax, you're more connected to your subconscious mind, to your heart, to your spirit. And I noticed that I was getting clearer messages from my guides. I knew my dad was part of my spirit guides team. I knew Archangel Michael and other beings, but I didn't really know who they were. I would just get the messages, and sometimes they would actually guide me through the journeys, almost like I was having a guided meditation, but it was through them. And then I could feel that it was more of a collective, more than one being. I could feel the difference between when I was having a conversation with my dad or with my team. And so one day, in one of those practices, they gave me a name, and it was the Guardians of Love. And
Oh,
I
I love
loved
that.
it. I was like, yeah, the Guardians of Love. I love it. And I started actually writing some of the channeled messages that I would get for me, for the collective. And then I started actually posting some of them under the name of the Guardians of Love. If anyone goes back to the first channel messages that I posted on my YouTube channel, it says the Guardians of Love. And then I started becoming familiar with the Pleiadians when I was guided to a book called The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions of Consciousness by Barbara Hand-Clow. And that book really changed everything. Like, it changed my life. And I wanted to just devour the book, but I was also guided to just take my time. And because each chapter is about one dimension of consciousness. And so I was reading the first dimension, the second dimension, taking my time to understand. And there were so many synchronicities when I was reading this book. One of them, I think I was on the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension. I was actually in Mexico, in Yucatan, visiting the Mayan sacred sites. And the Mayans are very much connected to the Pleiadians. I didn't know that then. And I would have dreams with beings as well that looked like the Mayans. And it was really synchronistic, and I started to sort of develop that relationship with the Pleiadians. And then in one of those sessions, they actually said, like, we are the guardians of love. And I was like, that makes total sense, right? They are actually the guardians of love. That's what they're doing in a nutshell. That's what they're helping us with, to remember that we are Christ consciousness embodied, that we are love. And so they sort of just gave me the green card and said, like, you're channeling the Pleiadians. And I took a little while even to say I'm channeling the Pleiadians, because I was just wondering, if I should come out of the channeling closet,
I know
and
that feeling.
yeah. And I remember in one of those sessions too, they were just like, you can use our names, and also you don't have to go through all this process to channel. Because at that time I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this a whole ritual. I'm gonna do some breath work for 30 minutes. I'm gonna play some music. I'm gonna release, and then I'm gonna channel. And then what I would do too is I would either record the messages, or what I would type the messages after the session, and then I would record, and then I would post. And it was quite a long process. And so they were sort of saying, like, you can do this if you want, but you don't need to do that. You can just, take a few deep breaths, set your intention to connect with us, and we're right there. So today I actually do this more naturally. I channel 101, and I have group sessions as well with my community, and they ask questions, and even some parts of those sessions I actually post on YouTube as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that experience. I had a similar sort of experience with the name Guardians of the Ship was coming through. And I remember when that first started, just my ears getting hot and like a ringing noise, and wondering, did you have any kind of physical, obviously we're in a physical transformative process now, we're all going through it. Any kind of physical responses in the body when you channeled, like at the beginning of your journey?
Yeah, definitely the ringing ears. They would happen every now and then. I feel like it was because I started with my breathwork practice. It is a very physical. It can be, if you want. It can be a very
Sure.
physical practice, because you're actively breathing, and I would also move my body and just feel the energy moving through the body, through the kundalini. I'd make lots of sounds as well, because sound is it's not only healing, but it can also really help you to raise your frequency and tap into that connection. So I didn't feel anything strongly like in my body, and I think it's because I was practicing to use my body as well as sort of tool to help me connect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And have the Pleiadians shared any kind of self-healing secrets?
Yeah, I think that healing in itself is self, right? Self healing. Like I believe that we are all self healers, and then we meet guides. That's why I personally like the word guide more than healer, because I'm just kind of giving you a push or some guidance, for people to find that healing within themselves. And so something that they always say, obviously the breath is your superpower, like, and it's free, you're breathing all the time, right? And it's just using that more consciously. There's medicine in your body as well, and sounding as well. I feel like for me, I've also trained in as a sound healer with the voice, because of my background as a singer. And it really helped me to become more psychic, more clairaudient, even to just like sound or hum, You know, it's nothing crazy. It's actually a lot simpler. Everything I'm saying is very simple. You know, breathing, sounding, moving your body, feeling the energy in your body. There's so much divine intelligence in the body, in our frequency, in our cells, in our voice. And the Pleiadians are very big on the heart as well. You know, they're always sharing messages to connect with the heart. And they say the heart is your multidimensional tool. Your heart is the portal. And I feel like that would be like the main thing when it comes to healing or self-healing, is just to focusing on the heart. And because the heart, if you have a closed heart, it's going to be very difficult for you to heal, for you to channel, for you to expand your consciousness, to get to that 5D, to that unity consciousness. So it's all about allowing yourself to feel your emotions without judgment, because the heart is really that sacred space that holds space for everything that you're feeling, everything that you're thinking, all that you are, you know, all that you might perceive as negative or bad in you, good, right? The heart is that sacred neutral space that we have in us.
Yeah, beautifully said. So tell us a little bit about Taygeta.
Yeah, this is interesting because when I started channeling 101 with groups, people would ask questions to the Pleiadians, to us, questions that I could have asked myself before, but I just never thought of asking them. So it's really great because I feel like it's like a co-creation, really. You know, people asking questions that maybe I needed to hear. Oftentimes, it's for me too, because I'm part of the collective. And questions that, yeah, people ask that I didn't think of asking, maybe just because I just feel the connection, and the messages they just resonate with my heart. So I never really asked those questions like, where are you? What planet are you? What star system? You know, how do you live? How do you look like? But I also understand that it's a human condition. We're curious, but also this information helps us to find a deeper connection as well with those beings that, you know, they're humanoids, but they're not here on planet Earth. And we do have names. We do, you know, have physical traits, and we can see each other. We can, you know, that's normal for us. So they understand that. So that information came to me because someone in my community asked, and then the message came through, that my higher self is a Pleiadian being. That also made a lot of sense, because then it explained my connection with them. And it's a being that lives in Taygeta. But Taygeta is a star. So the Pleiades is a star cluster. It's very big. They're mostly known by the seven sisters, or the seven sistars. But there's over 1,000 stars in that cluster. So it's more like the star has, you know, planets around, just like the Andromeda galaxy. The central sun is Alcyone, which is also one of the seven sisters. So that was an information that came through. And the other information that came through is because I also feel sometimes it's more of a collective consciousness. It's a group of consciousness. Then they presented themselves as 90 Collective Pleiadians. So this is information that came through because people asked about who they are. And I've had glimpses of where they are, what they look like in those meditations and breath work, but it's not something that I look for. I'm more of a clairaudience, so it's more of a telepathic communication. Sometimes there's visuals, but most of the times the visuals that come through are usually for the person that I'm connecting with. more than for me.
Beautiful. Well, we can't wait to hear more. We're going to go to a very quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
This September 6th through the 13th, join with like-minded souls in the experience of a lifetime on the Royal Caribbean Ovation of the Seas as we travel from Seattle to Alaska. Internationally renowned researchers, investigators, experiencers, authors, holistic healers, contactees, spiritual luminaries will sail on an extraordinary voyage of transformation. This cruise will explore UFOs, alien contact, cover-ups, ancient mysteries, the paranormal, holistic healing, and spirituality. Experience engaging lectures, one-on-one sessions, private, custom-tailored excursions, and a nightly UFO watch. The cruise is booking up fast. Go to contactatsea.com and be sure to mention the UNX Network when you book. That's contactatsea.com or phone 336-749-1219. That's 336-749-1219.
This is Margie K, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number one.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Tautfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UNX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
Welcome back to Starseed Ascension. We are here tonight with Will Caminada, who is also the Pleiadian Channel. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So I love what you were sharing, just your journey is so beautiful. And, hi, Judy.
Hi, Judy.
Experience there. But yeah, I remember, when I first started channeling, like mediumship, so for people directly and loved ones from the other side, and I was channeling just different galactics over different periods of time, but they would come in with this information and just start like coming into the sessions, and not even intentionally calling. So did you ever have experiences where that just sort of came to you, or was it always out of intention?
Yeah, I think intention is also one of our superpowers too.
Sure.
And it's something that sometimes we forget, or we're just not educated. Like, I didn't know about the power of intention a few years ago, and I wish I knew. So it's happened mostly through dreams. So I know that I do a lot of work in the astral realm in dreams, and ever since I was a kid and I would have those dreams with my dad, it happened that I would get messages, and I would get those visions as well through dreams. And definitely when I'm in a session with somebody else, I always tell my clients that it's a co-creation.
Sure.
So their energy makes the session basically. And so pretty much all the time, I can also feel their guides or one of their guides or their higher self. And so they will come through and they'll say a message, send a message to them. I always try to let them know and say there's an Arcturian being, or there's a Lyran being, and sometimes, yes, loved ones too. But most of the time people come to me, they already have that knowing of star beings, or
Sure.
archangels. So I always tell people, like, if you have that intention to connect with your guides too, they will show up, or they'll reveal themselves to you, because sometimes people don't even know who their guides are. So that's also something that people look for when they come into the sessions. They want to know if they have a Pleiadian guide, or if they've come from the Pleiades or the Arcturians.
Right.
And so usually when I connect with other galactic beings or other beings, it's from the person's team. But there have been times too that I would go into a practice for myself, and maybe I would set the intention to connect with my Pleiadian guides, and then I would feel a different energy, and it's Archangel Michael or the Orions. It's a different energy. So
Yes.
that's also something that I get excited about, because it's like, yeah, there's more guides that I can connect with, right? And it's exciting to just connect with them and start learning as well the differences, because it's a frequency thing. And this is something that people ask me to quite often in my communities, like, how do you know when it's your higher self and when it's the 9D collective Pleiadians?
Yes.
And it's just a frequency. It's not necessarily a different type of voice. It can be, or it can be a different tone, but it's more of the frequency. And this is something that the Pleiadians share in their messages often too, is that we're all learning new languages, if you will, in the language of energy, the language of feeling the frequency and just knowing.
Yeah, I love that. And how you described it as the different frequencies versus necessarily like a different image, because sometimes it seems and you may have a different experience, but if there's a certain expectation, right, that can almost block it out. But you learn to recognize the different energy signatures or frequencies, and then once you kind of are familiar or remember what the feeling is, right, because it's more
Yeah.
remembering, then you can recognize that real quickly or
Yeah.
almost immediately.
And then it becomes like just recognizing the voice of your mother on the phone. Like you just know it. Like you don't have to ask, are you my mom? You just know.
Yep.
And it's something that I share too. I have a course called Introduction to Channeling.
Okay.
And one of the things that I share, one of the practices is the intention to connect with your higher self, but also, like you said, releasing those expectations. Because at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter who you're channeling in the beginning. It's more about just connecting with your own heart and your frequency, receiving messages, whether it's vision or feeling, tapping into the different clairs and just channeling that energy and learning how it feels in your body. So even though we can have the intention, we also release expectations, because at the end of the day, if you feel good, if you feel like it's a good message, and even if it's simple, and most of the times in the beginning they're very simple, because I also believe that spirit doesn't complicate things. Like if the message is getting too complicated and complex, it's probably like your ego trying to understand things. And I remember years ago when I was experimenting with automatic writing, there was one time that I just got believe, believe, believe. That was the message, and it was signed by Archangel Michael. I was like, thank you. Oh my God, I connected with Archangel Michael. That's great. But then my ego immediately went like, is that all I got? Like, believe, right? Can I get just a little bit more? But then as I sat with it, I just felt like that's exactly what I needed. It was just to believe that I am already channeling, that I am already connected with spirit, and just continue to believe. So there's a lot of power as well in the simple messages.
I love that. So it's almost like having gratitude for as little or as much that wants to come through each channel.
Absolutely.
Oh. So what about then? Well, I mean, I know you channel beautiful messages on the daily, and they're always like so right on, and just wondering, are you doing that? Like, what's your process look like now? You described it's shorter, right? You can just kind of tap in immediately, but are you getting up each morning and checking in kind of like what is important to share with the people? Or is this like nighttime? How does that look for you?
Yeah, it has to be a little bit shorter, because then I would have to like do breath work for an hour every day and get one message per day. So it thanks to their message as well, that they said, you can just set the intention, take a few deep breaths, and see what comes through. So I started. It's a great practice for me because I don't overanalyze the message, or I don't question much. I don't try to get my ego in the way and then just question, is this good enough? And if I start doing this, I immediately get that energy from them, like, it's good enough, like, just check spelling and punctuation. Right? Which sometimes it probably passes. I probably have made some spelling mistakes or punctuation, but that's important. That's when the ego or the logical mind comes in, but that's like at the very end. So my process is, I just take a moment, take a few deep breaths, and I ask for a message for the collective. And sometimes I get visions, but most of the times it's just a message that I hear, and it's not the whole message. Sometimes it's just the first line, the first phrase, and I start typing, and then it's there. And I usually do this at night, because I used to do that in the morning, but I do it at night mostly because I think about people that are in Australia or in Asia, in they are already probably receiving that, like, at the end of their day, or half of their day, in the middle of the day. So mostly because of that. And so I actually schedule them so that so the post gets there early. It's just about a time zone thing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we're working in the quantum, so you never know. I was just curious, maybe like 5 messages want to come through at a time.
Sometimes it does, because then it makes my life a little bit easier. I have done that as well, like for the week, because like you said, we are working in the quantum field where time is expanded, and yeah, sometimes I do that too, because it makes my life easier, and it's great too because then I have all the posts scheduled. But also, it's also great when there's a message, I don't know, for Friday, and then that message actually is really good for me because I needed to hear that, or something happens in the world and it's just perfect for that. So it's a little bit of validation, even though they also help me to understand that validation is great just for your ego, really, but I didn't need that. We don't need that, but the validation works well every now and then when we have that synchronicity. It's just a little confirmation that goes, yeah, you're on the right track, like you're you're doing great. That's something that we need for the human condition.
Yeah, absolutely. It like sort of keeps us going, like little carrots.
Yeah.
So what about the 9 dimensions of consciousness. Anything you want to speak to or share about that and how they could sort of benefit our life?
Yeah. So I got that book. I was guided to that book, The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions of Consciousness by Barbara Hand-Clow. I also remember watching an interview with her and Regina Meredith on Gaia. And I was just like, yeah, this is amazing. I just resonated so much with her energy and the information as well. And so I actually started quietly sharing that information in live sessions on Instagram, on Insight Timer as well, testing the waters and see how people resonated with that information. And in doing that, I was also receiving more information about those dimensions of consciousness. And so much so that I've then created a program, which is a 9-week program. It's called the Multidimensional Self. We're actually starting a new group on the 9th of September, 9/9.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah. And so every week we go through a dimension of consciousness. We learn about what they are, because what I'm actually talking about is the level of consciousness of each dimension more than the dimension itself, even though we also learn what the dimensions are. Like the 3D is this physical realm of linear time and space, but it's also what the level of consciousness is here. So consciousness is traveling through all these dimensions and it has different levels. And then we have all of that in us too. And I think that was sort of my role in channeling more information about how those dimensions of consciousness are within us and how we can tap into those dimensions just as we are. And so it's sort of like bringing that macrocosmic information into the micro that we are, because I feel like for most people, they might think of multidimensionality and then they might look up and think of the higher dimensions and the galactic beings and all of that, and it is that, but this is also part of our multidimensionality. The physical body is part of our multidimensionality. The internal body is part of our multidimensionality as much as our emotions, our thoughts, the subtle bodies in the subtle realm. So everything is within us. And so, like, my main intention is to help people to tap into that multidimensional potential and to really, and that's for me too, to not just understand, but also feel that we are the universe manifested into this physical multidimensional being.
Absolutely. And so we have this journey right into 5D New Earth, and you talk a little bit about the 5 key aspects of 5D living, and is that a concept that that you teach as well in your courses?
Yeah, a few years ago, I had one course that was just about 5D, and that's when I was teaching about those 5 elements of 5D living, which is actually all of the videos are on my YouTube channel as well. In case anybody wants to check them out, there's a playlist that says 5D consciousness, and the videos are there. But because then I created the multidimensional self, which is 9 weeks, then a lot of that information went into that program, which is a little larger. And so it's when we get into the 5th week, which is 5D, then we talk a lot more about 5D consciousness and 5D living. I don't know if I actually remembered all of them, but it's present.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Presence and neutrality, surrender and trust. There's duality and non-duality. There's what else? Can Do you have it with you?
Abundance. Yeah, that's what I was going to list them for you if you needed it, but you were doing a great job. I think you got them all. Yeah, just non-linear time. Yeah, non-linear time and love and oneness. I think we're kind of packed.
Of course. How could I forget this? This is like the main thing. Yeah, love and oneness, which is basically what 5D is. It's that realm of love and oneness and unity consciousness and Christ consciousness. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think we feel very connected to the Pleiadians, because they're helping us to remember that we are love, and they're bringing that information that we are Christ consciousness embodied, right? And it's also believed, I don't want to say that this is the absolute truth, but it's believed that Yeshua, Jesus, was a Pleiadian being that incarnate here to seed the planet with that Christ consciousness. So it's not about Christ, the man embodied. He was the messenger, the seeder, if you will, to help us remember that we have that in us, that we are that, right? So we are the embodiment of that oneness and that unity consciousness. This is something that it's a very frequent message in the daily messages as well, is that you are love, that you are here to anchor light and to be that love and to be Christ consciousness. It's not that unity consciousness is something that we're going to achieve. We are going to, as a collective, embody that and raise the frequency of the planet, and it starts within us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because that's just such a critical time, right? In a place where there's a lot of division and separateness right now. And well, that's duality, I guess. So a lot of that powerful energy and messaging coming in. And just a personal question, through your journey of connecting with Christ consciousness and 5D energies, have you been shown sort of what plugs you in and then what drops you out of those dimensional frequencies?
I think that it's as we expand our awareness, then we become more aware of our ego, right? Which, I don't want to say the ego is the bad guy. I mean, sometimes we need it, right? We need it to schedule this. So our ego helped us to, to schedule, to go to our appointment. And there's that element of, the linearity, that we're still in a linear time and space, and that's okay. But there's also the aspect that the ego is rooted in duality, and being right, and right or wrong, good or bad, me versus others, and that's, as a collective, that's how we've been living for thousands of years, right? We're just having the ego leading the way. So we're undoing this, and I think that's the process of expanding our awareness. And it can be challenging, because the more you expand your awareness, then the more aware you are of your ego and the things that get you in that dual state. So traffic is an example of an extreme duality space, right? Everybody is just can you find oneness when you're in traffic? We all can, but it's more challenging, right? So I think, for me personally, I don't drive, so, but when I did, it was very dualistic. It was a very dualistic experience. But I feel like these challenges are the opportunities for us to get into that 5D, to learn what it is, right? Because we're co-creating a new paradigm and a new template. So the template is not given to us, because the template that was given to us was the 3D template that we don't resonate with. We don't want it anymore. We're getting out of that. So for me personally, I when I'm in my room, when I'm working, when I'm here talking to you, like-minded people, when I'm with my community, or just, singing or creating, I'm very okay. Like I can say that I'm in a more 5D state, in a flow state. I think the challenge happens when I get out of here, and I started exchanging energies and frequencies with other people in other environments. When you have a conversation with your mom that just triggers you, or with your partner, or with your brother, usually family bonds, they tend to trigger us. So for me, that's when the challenge arrives. And I feel like, again, I don't like it, because I am aware of it. Like if I get triggered, and if I behave in a way that it's not, pure love, unconditional love, because it's a difficult goal to have. And I talked about this in a recent video. I don't think that the goal is to always be in 5D, but more just to continue to expand your awareness, because then the more you expand your awareness, the more you're going to become aware of your feelings and your thoughts. And then you choose again, you choose different, or you choose better. And then you keep choosing until you have another cycle of evolution, and another challenge, and another lesson, which will go back to the onion, the layers, right?
Yes. Yes, it's like a process of the nullification of triggers, and the family that you mentioned tend to be like the absolute litmus test for most people to see,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
come
from
back.
other lifetimes.
Yep. That's how you can check your central nervous system and see how much you've grown
Yeah.
and expanded. I love it. So anything that you want to share about your book, From Darkness to Light?
Yes. So when I was writing a lot, I wrote a bunch of songs, and that was a little while ago now. It was at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when I released an EP with 5 songs, 5 original songs, and each of them, they had a very special meaning, because it was different themes of my own awakening. So it's not like in your face, but it, like, one talks about self-love and self-acceptance, the other talks about surrendering and trusting, the other one talked about um, death and how love will always remain. And I wanted to write more about the songs, the stories behind it. And so I started writing this book, which is kind of like an interactive book, because you can listen to the song. There's like a QR code that you can listen on Spotify. There's the lyrics, and then there's the story behind it. And I say the light and the darkness is part of the story. The darkness is not necessarily we perceive it in the 3D level. We perceive it as a negative thing, as a painful thing, and it is from a 3D perspective, but it's just the process through find more light, and the light that you are. So I share the story. So for example, the story of my dad passing away, and how painful it was, but also the light that I found on the other side of that, which is he helped me on the other side to awaken, and to get to where I am today, and have this, this awareness. And so I'm very grateful for this. So yeah, so it's five chapters, 5 songs. There's also like meditations for each track as well, for each chapter, and there's journaling prompts as well. So obviously you can just read the story, but if you want, you can also sort of interact with it and read one chapter, and then do the meditation, do some journaling for the week, absorb the information, maybe just reflect on your own path of surrendering or of self-acceptance and self-love. So it's me sharing my story, but also encouraging people to reflect on their story as well.
I love that. That's so beautiful and inspiring too, for especially people that are going through, a challenging time. And, thankfully there are people like yourself that are out there sharing information. But as you know, and that was my journey too, there wasn't like this whole world available at the time, right? So you kind of just had to.
I wish.
For sure. So, Will, we're about up on time, but how can the people find you, connect with you, join your offerings?
Well, thank you so much for this awesome conversation, and again for creating this space for us. The best way, I would say, it's just go on my website, which is willcaminada.com. There you'll find my YouTube channel, my Instagram. If you type YouTube on my name on YouTube as well, you find my channel. I'm mostly active on YouTube and Instagram, but I'm also on Insight Timer. But yeah, mostly YouTube and Instagram. And there's also my community on Patreon that's called the Starseed Grid. And we meet every month, twice a month. I guide breathwork sessions, sound healing sessions as well. I share the energy themes for the month. So usually we have one session in the beginning of the month. It's not predictions or anything like that. It's more of just like the energy of the month. Again, I do similar to the daily messages. I just connect and I just ask for the themes for the month, and the messages that I get, I share with my community. I actually post that on my YouTube as well for free. Just the session that it's just for the community, the healing aspect, the healing session. And then I also do the channeling group sessions as well at the end of the month. So it's a beautiful community. And if anyone is going through that starseed awakening or that spiritual awakening, there's a lot of healing that happens, a lot of connection with spirit and connection with us too. I think it can be a lonely path sometimes, because then your friends don't understand that you're talking to aliens and your mother doesn't understand.
Well, we'll have to have you come back, because we can go down the rabbit hole on that that topic for sure.
Yeah,
but thank you so much, Will, for joining. We are out of time, so just wanted to say thank you all so much for listening and watching, and until next time, may you find peace in the mysteries of the cosmos. Much love.
Much love. Thank you.